Welcome to Sustainable Success. Hope everyone is having a great week. Here we are in the second week of June, and finally, summer, I think, has arrived here in the Northeast where we are in the New York area. God, it has been a very mild, wet spring here, but yet today we're feeling those summer temperatures, and thank God. I could tell you a lot of people want to get outside, and we hope that wherever you are, weather is good. And again, if you're new to Sustainable Success, you found us here at the Voice America Business Channel. Now we've been on Lisbon platform since January of this year, and we are so excited to be part of that platform and offering all of our listeners great opportunity to learn more about our guests and to take advantage of the different takeaways that they offer to the listeners like you. So again, we highly encourage you to check out our show on the Lisbon platform, as well as on Spotify, Apple, of course, where you can listen to it, and now an audio version on YouTube. So now you have another option to listen to the show. In addition, we encourage you to follow us here on Facebook as well as on Sustainable Success 2017. There we've had many of our great guests sharing their words of wisdom and insights to take you and your business to the next level. Again, you could follow us at Sustainable Success 2017. We've been now on the airwaves here for now over 8 years, celebrating 8 years last month. Hard to believe. Where did the time go? Today's show is being brought to you today by Alumni Direct. Alumni Direct is a new social media community platform dedicated to bringing alumni together from all different generational types and an opportunity to meet new people for the first time. Now, it does take out all the noise out of social media. No more of those noisy notifications. You get to come in and generate genuine and authentic relationships with the people you choose to interact with, including the content that you want to share. In addition, it is a membership program. You will be eligible for a wide array of other different services that are not available to the general public. If you'd like more information about Alumni Direct, check them out at alumnidirect.com. That's alumnidirect.com. Well, we got a wonderful show today, and this is a topic that we would like everybody to pay attention to and take notes. Even if you got AI tools recording, please do. This is an important show about leadership strategy. We're going to be talking about rest. Yes, rest is a leadership strategy. Wow. Well, I could say after you hear our subject matter expert share today, it's going to enlighten you where you're going to be planning and part of your strategy where rest will be not only for you, but your team as well, and how this can help move your KPIs to a whole new level. So we're going to be talking about rest is a leadership strategy. We're here with Dr. Erin Wilson. Dr. Erin Wilson is on a mission to transform the way leaders and teams thrive by integrating relationship, intelligence, strategic rest, and intentional leadership. As the CEO of Design Ideal Consulting, she has spent over a decade designing transformative team building experiences for organizations worldwide. A certified expert in core strengths, the 5 behaviors, and everything DISC, Erin equips teams with the tools to communicate, collaborate, and lead with impact. She is also the co-founder of the Strategic Rest Summit and co-author of Strategic Rest in Leadership, challenging the hustle mindset and helping leaders cultivate clarity, resilience, and creativity. And as the co-host of the Power Nap live show, she dives into the intersection of rest, leadership, and innovation. And without further ado, we welcome Dr. Erin Wilson to the show. Dr. Erin, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Chris. I couldn't be more excited to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We are so excited. Now, this topic is so important. I've always been an advocate. I've always incorporated meditation and certain times during the day, like even if it's like small little 5-minute pockets of time to kind of just be in the moment, to take a breath. And I can't tell you, like, over the years, the compound effect that has had on my clarity, my focus, getting things done on the tasks that really matter and not getting distracted by stuff that's irrelevant. But let's learn more about rest. If you could give us just maybe a backstory, how you got into this particular area, and why it's your purpose in helping leaders understand the importance of rest in their overall leadership strategy.
Absolutely. So to be honest, I chased titles for years, right? Like I was like in the workspace. Everything I knew, right? To try to move up that corporate ladder until I realized that being called to impact people was what I was being called to do, not just systems, right? So I started to make that shift from ambition to purpose. And that's really where everything changed for me. I get the opportunity to be with teams that are looking to build their collaboration, to understand how rest is exactly like you said, that leadership strategy for them. But what really makes me so excited is when folks have those aha moments. Really, when they start to finally see their strengths really clearly. And that's when I started to really understand that leadership development is where I belonged.
Wow, I love it. Love it. And so many leaders need great examples, that lead by example, such as what you're doing. And so I guess, let's talk about strategic rest. Like, I love the word strategic because that means when it's strategic, that means, hey, we got a plan for this. It does play a role in something bigger. It's not just, yeah, it's taking care of you and it's good for you, but it's good for not only your personal well-being, but what you're doing in your career, your business, and how it impacts other people.
Absolutely. So, one of the first things when you think about strategic rest is that I wanted people, especially the teams that I was working with and helping them move more towards collaboration, to be able to make the impact that they wanted, to get those KPIs that you talked about, was really that we have to start rewarding sustainable practices and not just visible hustle. Right? That is one of the most important pieces. And as we thought about that, myself and my co author, Dr. Kelly Dixon, I've got to always shout her out if that makes sense. We were really seeking ourselves to go, how are we doing this? How are we creating time for many pieces, exactly like you talked about, in order for us to make sure that we have the clarity that we need and really to ensure that we weren't using rest as a reward, but instead as the fuel that helped us be more creative, to keep that clarity up and to really be people that we show up as our best self in spaces. And so that's where this conversation was born out of. Strategic rest was literally born out of accountability conversations between the two of us about how to ensure that we're using rest as a leadership strategy. So from that, we developed a framework because I said I want everyone to experience what this can look like, right? Especially leaders like us. So we created a framework called the NAP framework, right? And of course, I always giggle when I say NAP because it fits so well with
Oh
strategic
yeah.
rest, right? But the NAP framework really lays out for people. The first step is, of course, nurture, right? Oftentimes we think of nurture and of rest as only sleeping, and that's not true. There are so many different ways for us to experience rest, especially strategic rest, when we're creating space for it. One of my favorite ways to feel rested is really learning. That's a great space, whether or not you know how to do something. The other day, I went to a DJing class and I like fell in love. I had no idea that job was so hard. So shout out to all the DJs out there. But I started the class feeling kind of tired because it was late in the weekend. And I ended it with such a burst of energy around the fact that I was learning, right? Our communities also play a huge part in how we are able to experience rest. So, are you surrounding yourself with people who value rest and also encourage you to be able to find places and spaces for you to be able to do that? So, nurture is deep, and especially when you check out the book, Strategic Rest and Leadership, you'll find even more about how we talk about that. So, A is all about assess. Right? We as leaders know all about that. We're never afraid to send out surveys to find more information about the things that we need to, but are we really assessing the things that are in our lives that make us not rest, that do provide rest, and really think intentionally about the times where we're feeling rested, not just when we're sleeping? So we talk a little bit about that and how to use that as a part of it. And finally, P is for prioritize, right? Oftentimes we make these lofty goals about what rest can look like, but really reframing the way that we prioritize rest is incredibly key as you become someone who is practicing strategic rest.
Wow, that's great. And I love the process, what you're doing. What would you suggest, like, somebody hearing this right now, Dr. Aaron, they're hearing this, but like with anything, people sometimes they're like, oh my God, there could be a lot of things that we have to do to get this done. And you know how people can get like they get overwhelmed because they're so caught up. I got to have it all. Where could they start? What is the first thing they can start with this process?
Absolutely. The first thing that I would say to them is that rest isn't selfish, it's really responsible, right?
Oh yeah.
Like your team, they don't need your exhaustion. They really need you to have that clarity, right? To come in as the best version of yourself. So I would first start by saying, don't you want to give the best version of yourself to the people around you, right? I had a client the other day and we were talking exactly about that. And they said the same thing. Oh my goodness, I don't have time for strategic rest. Or I feel guilty when I'm deciding to take time
Yeah,
to
I think that's a big one. The guilt, like, because we live in this
Mhm.
society where, like taking time off or resting is being a slacker.
Absolutely. Well, that guilt is misplaced because
Yeah.
you need to switch that guilt instead to not showing up as the best version of yourself in all of the spaces that you navigate, if that makes sense. And so, as that person was talking about that, I asked exactly that. They said, man, I walk in and I'm so tired. I can't even be with my kids. I can't do any of those things. And that was my first question. Do you want to be the kind of person that walks in that has energy, that's excited that your kids aren't running from the door when you come in because you're yelling about clothes and all of those different pieces? And the person answered yes. So the first step is really to think about places in your day where it doesn't feel like a heavy lift, right? What are the things that are giving you energy? And if you're someone who goes, nothing about my day gives me energy, then you may need to start asking yourself some serious questions then too. But for me, it's really when I'm getting the opportunity to facilitate content for people. So I look for ways, even when I'm not doing work, of course, I own my own consulting firm. So even when I'm not with clients, I still look for ways to teach people things. So to me, the first step is to see where are the moments in the day where I feel energy. I had a client the other day who was talking to me about the time that she felt the most energy was when she had lunch with her husband. They worked at the same place.
Oh wow.
I know. And I was like, that's so cool. They work at the same university. And so she said, every day we create time to meet up in the cafeteria to eat lunch together. And that's where I feel the energy, right? So I asked her, hey, are there ways for you also when you're thinking about things to create kind of that still same experience, but away from the lunch table, but while you're in your office, right? So she said, I never thought about it. Yes, it is talking with my husband, but also the food aspect is something that makes me like excited. So what she did was started to every once in a while bring snacks into the office for her coworkers to invite them into a space where they share with her over a snack. And she messaged me the other day talking about, oh my gosh, I've never thought of that being something that could help me feel rested. But she said, I'm able to really power through my day because I look forward to those many rest opportunities.
That's great. And it's one of those things, like, again, it's breaking those patterns of how we've been programmed, like here in the especially here in the United States, like go, go, go. And you go to a place like Switzerland where, hey, they get things done. They're also could be very productive, but they know when to throttle back. They know when to take a break. And it's not 100 miles per hour.
Absolutely. Here's the thing. We have just really been programmed to think that teams are supposed to constantly look so busy, like running all over the place. And that for me was the thing that changed my life. I actually had a boss who didn't look like that. She never looked like she was exhausted or tired or frazzled. And I was like, how is she so successful, but she never looks like things are wild, right? And you kind of think and see some of those people every once in a while in life that are like ducks, right? Their little
Yeah.
feet may be moving fast, but they look cool as cucumbers. And I wanted that too. And one of the things that I started to notice about her is that she took her PTO. Right? She would hire people who were experts in what they did, and she wouldn't stand over us to do it. She trusted that we would get the work done, and her job was to remove roadblocks, right? So oftentimes we see people who are incredibly exhausted in the workspaces that they're in because they may be overdoing some of the things that they don't necessarily have to do. Have you put the right people on your team? Are you allowing the people on your team to be experts? Because well-rested teams, they don't have to look, it doesn't look busy, right? To me, it looks like people who are energized, people who are focused, and then ultimately, the thing that I work with teams on all the time is it looks like they're collaborative.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so true. And and I guess do you feel like, with this particular area, does it start with awareness, not to the point to just check a box off, but to say we're starting with awareness to at least educate, get it out there, and share that we're gonna tackle this one step at a time to see if it sticks and becomes a pattern with our team.
Absolutely. It very much is about changing, again, like you said, all of those patterns.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and then does it have to start when you see it for it to be stickable? And I know we're going to be going to break here shortly. Does this something that has to start from the top down, or could it be wherever somebody, regardless of title, meaning it could be at a team unit level?
I definitely think that cultures can shift, of course, at many different levels, right? But to me, when leaders model rest, they have people who are working for them that are much better. Even before we started this conversation, you were pointing out some of the companies that have prioritized rest, of course, for their folks, and they're hitting those KPIs. They are making the impact that they want to make. So, absolutely, to me, great leaders really do model rest for their folks because they're self aware, right? And good leaders don't just see burnout coming, they really choose to kind of hop on it early to take care of it before it becomes an issue.
Got it. Got it. Wow. Powerful stuff. We hope people that are listening are taking notes. This is not only for you, but even the rest of your, people that maybe could not listen to this show live. You want to definitely share this. Hopefully, maybe you're using AI to transcribe because it'll make sure that it's broken down accurately. There's a lot of golden nuggets here. And all of you are going to have an opportunity to get in contact with Dr. Erin, as she'll be providing her contact information here later in the show. Well, everybody, we got to go to break right now, but when we come right back, we got more to come with Rest is a Leadership Strategy. And we hope that you are getting great value like I know I am. And this is such an important area. But we'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to Sustainable Success. If you're just joining us, we're talking about Rest is a Leadership Strategy with Dr. Erin Wilson. We highly encourage those joining us to, again, check out this show in its entirety later today here with the first segment, which was really a foundation to what strategic rest is and why it's so important. Again, this is not something to overlook. This can play a vital role in where you are and where your company desires to be. So, Dr. Erin, some great information that you shared. A lot of people may have heard of the term emotional intelligence, EQ, EI is sometimes the acronyms that are used, but they're not necessarily like know how it really ties down to a deeper level with self-awareness and then how that connects with strategic rest to really, again, make this transformative at the individual, team, and organizational level.
Absolutely. I'm so sorry, you guys. Hold on 1 second for me, okay? I thought I was gonna be in this space by myself. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Hold on 1 second. Hey guys, I'm so sorry. I'm like on a podcast. Okay, give me like 30. You're just fine. Thank you.
We go. So yes, if you can share with us, like to that would be extremely helpful.
Perfect. Absolutely. So for me, as you think about emotional intelligence, right? Like RQ is incredibly important because number one, it helps you understand yourself better, right? It helps you understand how you're motivated. And self-awareness is really step one when you start to recognize your rest needs, right? For some folks, if they're working in spaces where they're not kind of playing towards the thing that they're most motivated by, it can literally be exhausting. Even sometimes when we have to use our strengths that we have to, that are really low on the shelf of strengths that we use, that can be an exhausting day. So, really, you can't address what you kind of refuse to acknowledge. So, that's to me where emotional intelligence comes to play really quickly, right? I think I said this before, but I want to make sure that people hear this. Leaders with emotional intelligence, they don't just see that burnout coming, but they really choose to course correct early. And that helps teams as they're modeling it, right? We have to start understanding that performance isn't sacrificed. When you integrate that rest piece, it starts to really be amplified. But again, the culture of rest has to be modeled from the top. So understanding whether you're motivated by performance or process or people, we're all kind of motivated by a blend of all three of those things. And I actually work with teams to provide an assessment for them called Total SDI 2.0 that tells you exactly how you're motivated. So to see those aha moments go off for people going like, oh my goodness, that's why it's tough for me to be not getting the opportunity to work independently. So I'm exhausted because I'm doing all this stuff because I'm motivated by process, right? Makes it really clear to people about what they need, how to advocate for it, and what behaviors help them as they're changing the way that they work with people, and then ultimately how they rest.
Got it. Wow. Yes. Yes, I love that. And an emotional intelligence is a process. I know I embarked on an emotional intelligence journey back 20, God, in over 26 years now. It's been a while. And it took some time. It took some time to kind of like change where I was. Because back then, what you had said, if you would have told me rest was a strategy, I would have said, no way. There is no if you're not grinding and got your nose down all the time, you're going to be left in the dust. And then how quickly did I learn after I learned EQ, like how wrong that thinking was. And so, if you could dive, like talk a little bit about the process of EQ and that, where, I guess the self-awareness and then it kind of evolves from there and how, again, that where the rest really can integrate very well into that.
Absolutely. So, a little bit of like I was talking about, for me, I love emotional intelligence, but even deeper than that, exactly how I was talking about how you're motivated is
Yeah.
key for something that's called relationship intelligence, right?
Yes.
Which I really love. So, for example, like Chris, if you were motivated by people, right? Which I've had the opportunity to talk with you and you're super kind, right? But I actually think you may be more performance motivated, but we'll talk about
Well,
like,
no, it's funny that you said that because on the disc profile,
uh-huh.
I'm a DI. Like my I is slightly lower than my D, just slightly. They're almost the same.
Absolutely. See, you see how like we're clocking it right there, right? So let's just say straight up that you were motivated highly by people. Because of course, we all have that blend, right? Now, I am not really motivated by people at all. I have a low blend of people being motivated, but people would go, "Oh my goodness, I've listened to her voice. She seems engaging and like she likes people." So it has nothing to do with how you feel about people, right?
Yes.
And everything to do with if I was having a conversation with you who are motivated by people, I would use language to help you deeply understand something through that lens, right? A perfect example is I supervised someone who was motivated by people back when I was still working not for myself, right? And we had a terrible relationship starting out. I then got to know more about core strengths, right? And after we took that assessment, it became so clear to me why I never felt like she understood anything I was saying. I would always be talking about, "Oh, we're going to be the best department. Other people are going to want the information that we're doing or the process that we're doing it." And for her, she just wanted to know how she was impacting people, right? And so when I started to use more language about how this specific thing would impact someone, how this is going to make it better for people, even though I was talking about the same projects, oh my goodness, we started to be in sync, right? So, first of all, understanding that piece unlocks the door for you to also be able to advocate for people who are on your team, people who are around you, for them to, again, really be able to take those opportunities to rest, right? We often have critics who go like, "Rest is a weakness." You were just talking about that,
Oh
right?
yeah. That's how I bet. That's how people I was around, and quickly I learned how that was not the case.
Absolutely. Because here's the thing, if you think rest is a weakness, then you, to me, have never led when you've been fully restored,
Oh
right?
yeah.
The strongest leaders I know, they know how to pause on purpose. And that to me is incredibly important. I said it before and I'll say it again. Rest doesn't make you soft, it makes you sustainable.
Yeah, well, that's a great word, sustainable, because that's the thing. Business, anything in life or business is not a sprint; it's a marathon, and you got to pace. You know when to pick up the pace. You know when to throttle back the pace, because in the long run, it's a sustainable model, and you can't be going 100 miles per hour every time.
Absolutely. You really should start scheduling rest like a meeting, right? Because sometimes if it's not on the calendar, it doesn't happen. That daily pause is incredibly important for you to stay exactly like you talked about with that sustainable success through through strategic rest. I like that. We need t-shirts that say that, Chris.
Exactly. I love it. And it kind of flows, strategic. Well, they got like three S's in there, right? And with an R. Oh, I love that. And in terms of with the strategic rest, I mean this doesn't have to be something like you do just in your own personal time, like when you go to bed, and but these can be things that if companies plan for it, I'm not saying you're going to be sleeping for a few hours on the job every day, but there could be pockets of time just to recharge that can, if reflected in those KPIs is positive and going up, then why not keep doing that?
Absolutely, right? So when you have people who are really getting the opportunity to nurture themselves, even in spaces where they work, because here's the thing, most people spend more time with the people that they work with
Oh,
than they
that's
ever
true.
do with their families, right? So we have to make sure that we're creating a space where people are not afraid to step away when they need it, right? So that the moments that burnout start to creep up on people, they're able to push them back, right? We need to also create spaces where people feel like, I don't necessarily have to complete all of my work in my office. What if I'm walking around? Some of that allows for that collaboration and creativity to kind of pop up, right? But also, we have to have respect for the fact that some people recharge with solitude, right? And man, I think about all of the things, my business, even like you said, meditation, and some of the most phenomenal ideas I've ever had came from just solitude, right? We have to stop underestimating the power of just 10 quiet minutes.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. And it's so even that just that even like that little pockets of time, just like that additional focus and that additional energy can make a big difference. And it's like with anything, right? That if it may you may not notice it like one time, but when it accumulates each time you do it, it compounds off of each of those. That's where you start seeing the gains in the traction and the results and so on.
Absolutely. Because here's the thing, short term, right? When you start to focus on how to use rest as a part of your leadership strategy, you see that short term, it really helps leaders
Hmm.
recalibrate before they start to spiral. But then also long term, it starts to create rhythms of resilience that really help you prevent the burnout so you don't have to experience the spiral. So we really want to make sure that we're starting to use it, almost use it like a check engine light for your leadership, right? Like catch the tension before it becomes a crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Love that here. And, I hope everybody is getting a lot of value with this. Rest, even, factor this into your personal life, into your work life. Be the example, be a resource for others to do the same. I'm going to leave it up to you, Dr. Aaron, if you want to share, if there's any, like you don't have to mention any of your client names that you've worked with, but if wherever there's applicable, like where you can describe a situation where this like really how it impacted each individual in a team like over a period of time and what that meant to that organization.
Absolutely. So even incredibly recently, I had a retreat with a board who were all executives from different HR departments at other universities, right? So not only was it one of it will always be a core memory for me because one of
Yeah.
the people walked up holding my book and she had all these highlighted pieces. She also had those little tabs. And I was like, I cannot believe that you're really reading something that I wrote. So that was the first piece, right? But anyway, over a long-term piece, one of the things that she talked about was she started herself going like, I'm not going to worry about what other people are doing, but I am going to create a rest ritual for myself, right? I think she was talking about at Disney World how during a certain time they play like a certain music piece. And that's what she was explaining to me. I haven't seen it, but that's what she was saying, that they play kind of some music. And that means like, hey, we're kind of taking a rest. So she was like, I'm going to start doing that in my office. At 3 p.m., I'm going to play a song and just like rest for those moments. Laugh, whoever's there will do that, and that will be the thing. So, anyway, as they continued to do that over several months, they really started to see number one, that more people would step out of their office for what became the rest
Mm.
ritual, right? But also that they wouldn't necessarily step back in, that ideas started to form right outside of the space in her office that she was in, that people were like, oh my goodness, I'm not necessarily having to take my PTO to like run and hide from the people who I'm at work with. But also, when they started to look at the data of the things that they were trying to accomplish, kind of raise more students that were coming to specific places to increase the belonging, which was one of the strategies that they had for their office, they started to see less turnover for people who were
Wow.
leaving and more people who wanted to be there, who wanted to be in the space. And of course, started to look for ways to do their own rest rituals throughout their time in their office. So I love that kind of stuff.
Wow, I love it. And as we're getting down to the end of the second segment, anything else that you want to elaborate what you shared, starting when we started with EQ, with where awareness and motivation, or anything else that you'd like to add to kind of like really connect the dots for what you shared in this segment?
Absolutely. So for me, knowing knowing about yourself, right? That relationship intelligence piece also allows for you to understand how to navigate conflict, right? Or to understand more deeply what you experience in conflict. And we all know that with conflict, that often does not feel like rest, right? So knowing what happens to you in conflict, and through that assessment that I use with lots of teams all across the country, they're able to understand that we experience conflict in three different stages, right? But in our first stage of conflict, we are focused on three things, right? Ourselves, the other person, and the problem. So if
Mm.
we understand what's happening there, if we understand what we experience when we experience conflict, it allows us to take a step back and to move into a space where things are going well so that we are able to rest, right? So there's so many pieces that relationship intelligence helps us unlock so that we're able to feel rested because we know ourselves. We're working in the way that we feel motivated best. And then we're also able to create boundaries and to communicate with people about what we need best.
Wow, love it. Love that what you shared and so many people that are listening here. Now, as we get down, we're getting down to the last minute. Anything like a just like an impact statement, because I know we're going to get into some other new stuff and rather get into the new stuff right after the last segment. Anything like just a chunking statement that you'd like to like embed in somebody's mind right now.
Ooh, let's see. I would say that one thing that I want to embed in people's mind is in most leadership cultures, right? Rest is literally seen as something that you earn. But I want people to see it differently. I truly believe that it's something that is required in order for you to sustain impact, right? So it's not just that we're resting for fun, we're resting for us to be able to be the best version of ourselves in the future, for us to show up in spaces with that clarity, with creativity, and ultimately to inspire other people around us to show up in that way too. So it's not selfish, folks. It's necessary.
There you go. It's not selfish. You can't give what you don't have. So you got to fill your cup.
Absolutely. You got to fill that cup with strategic rest,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Strategic rest, and it's true because if I'm not focused or I don't have clarity, I can't be focused, and I can't not be a valuable resource for somebody else through my example. So true. Well, I know we got more to come from you, Dr. Erin. We're going to be, again, we're talking about rest is a leadership strategy. We're here with Dr. Erin Wilson. Again, we got to go to break, everybody. When we come right back, we got more to come, and we're going to kind of connect the dots for you so that you, after the show, could start taking action and getting more strategic rest to help move you and your business to the next level. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to Sustainable Success. We're talking about rest as a leadership strategy with Dr. Erin Wilson. Today's show is being brought to you today by Alumni Direct. a social media community platform dedicated to bringing alumni together from all different generational types and an opportunity to meet new people for the first time. Now, it also features a new professional athletes corner. Yes, for those professional athletes transitioning to everyday life, whether if you're going into a new career, buying a business or starting a business or even a franchise, well, this is the place for you. You get to now connect with other former professional athletes that are transitioning into new roles where now you can share genuine and authentic information about your experience to help each other through this transition. If you'd like some more information, check them out at alumnidirect.com. That's alumnidirect.com. And they also feature From Athletes to Entrepreneur podcast with the chairman and founder of the company, Rob Finkelstein. If you'd like to hear that, again, you can find that information at the alumnidirect.com website, and let them know that, again, Sustainable Success sent you and they will take care of you. So, Dr. Erin, just some great, great information here. Let's talk about, what does, like, when you have a group of individuals, a team that have gone through the strategic rest process, what does that look like now to the outsider, either customers or another team that is not aware of that, of what strategic rest is and what it can do for them?
Absolutely. First of all, you start to see a culture where they stop glorifying busy, right?
Oh yeah,
Because
yeah, busy but not productive.
yes, I think about how even when I was growing up, right? Like I may have finished my work faster than everybody else. And of course, sometimes I get in trouble for talking, right?
Mhm.
But it didn't mean that I got any less than the student who continued to work even past the time, you know what I'm saying, that was still available. So we both got good grades. So we need to stop kind of making the measure for how busy people look and instead start to think about that rested teams really feel and we start to notice with them that again they have more clarity, which to me is necessary as you're going for your missions and your goals and really trying to hit the value of your company, right? They also are more creative and are looking for ways to be innovative and also use opposition as a really good tool for them to move to the next level and the next spaces. Those teams also have fewer fires to put out, right? Um, when teams are well rested, they don't just work hard, they work well. And so that's a lot of the work that I do with teams in order to make sure that they're not just focused on being busy, that they're energized, that they're focused, and they're looking for great ways in order to be collaborative through
Yeah.
rest.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, and it's and when you the strategic rest, is this something that you feel the organizations that not only have gone through the maybe the have learned it and now are applying it, but are continuously looking to get better? And I'm not saying that there's like you got to go through 10 years to learn strategic rest, those reminders and that just and again connecting it to other areas that you train and consult with companies with the EQ and other types of development, how that really plays a big role in reflected in their numbers.
Absolutely. And here's the thing, if you're looking for a great place to start, right? When you grab our book, there's challenges in there's ways in order for you in each of the NAP framework pieces in nurture, in assess, in prioritize to look for actionable ways in order to institute that into your life or into your team's kind of space, right? So to me, it's important for you to be able to grab the tools around you that are available in order for you to be able to start this really important piece. Because to me, rest is not the opposite of leadership. It really should be a part of it for everyone. Rest is just incredibly important. And if people don't leave with anything else, the more you lead from alignment, not adrenaline, right? Because often we can do that, really is the more sustainable the impact that you have, whether it's at work, home, or play.
Wow, I love it. Great, great stuff what you shared there. And then, some of the other things that, when you talk about like, we talked about EQ in the second segment and then what teams look like.
Mhm.
What are some other things that really can, connect the dots to just this transformation that people really own their role and duties, and they're continuing to be an example, continuing to be a resource for others. And that's what builds that winning team environment, and how that obviously reflects outward to their customers, whether if they're a supply chain and it's somebody else, or if it's direct to the end user. Love to hear your input on, against where that strategic rest, works in tandem with all those other things.
Absolutely. So, first of all, it's really kind of understanding again that nurture, assess, prioritize, right? And
Yes.
looking for ways. So, to me, remember, nurture is all about like reconnecting with yourself as a person, not just as a professional, right? And then assess is about really looking for and noticing those patterns and energy leaks. And so, even as you do that, that's a great space to connect to your team, your office, even your home. What are the patterns for us? That glorify hustle and don't really look for spaces to be able to conserve our energy, and what are the things that are making us leak energy, right? Also, that final piece when you think about the nap framework is really all about prioritization, right? Really helping you decide what truly matters right now, okay? And so oftentimes we don't do that in our personal lives. We don't do it when it comes in the office. We kind of tend to think everything is important, but we're able to conserve our energy and really show up from a place, again, of that clarity, that creativity. We're able to be more collaborative across the board and with our teams when we show up in a space where we've really not only prioritized what's best for us, but also helping other people who are a part of our rest communities do the same.
I love it. And some of the things, I guess you kind of covered it, but I kind of want to reinforce it because it's something that, because sustainable success deals with a lot of performance based skill development, and we're all very high on that with goal setting. Discuss why the importance of consistency with strategic rest is so important. Like, if I went to the gym once a month, twice a month, am I going to achieve my goals that way? Probably not.
Well, it depends, number
Well,
one,
I,
what
I
your goals
rested. I
are, right?
rested one time last quarter.
I love that. Well, I really learned the hard way, right? That burnout, it just doesn't care how gifted you are. It just doesn't care about so many different pieces, right?
Absolutely.
I found myself before I wrote this book, right? And before I started to really be intentional about strategic rest, I was like given to everyone except for myself, right? And that's when I realized that rest isn't optional for leaders. It's incredibly essential, right? So one of the things that I'm challenging people to do is to really do exactly like I had to do, which was to rewrite my own relationship with rest, right? So now again, I see it as fuel and not a reward, right? Strategic rest is all about intention, okay? It's not just about pausing, but it also creates space for us to reflect. It creates space for us to reset and then connect so that exactly like you asked me, so that you have the opportunity to be able to lead with both clarity and energy, okay? A
Yeah.
break helps you escape, but strategic rest is all about helping you return stronger and better for whatever the next challenge is.
Yeah. It's true. And like I said, it just that extra layer of focus just, allows you to make better decisions, take calculated risks, know when to put up healthy boundaries, not to keep yourself into toxic situations, because that low energy can definitely get you sucked into that. And I know low energy used to get me sucked into distractions, whereas now with higher energy, I'm less likely to be distracted.
Absolutely.
And that all plays a big role in being productive, or in this case, actually more efficient than
Mhm.
productive. So yeah, even better. Not just productive, but even on top of that, efficient.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Chris.
No, I love this. I love this stuff. And I can't wait for people to learn about get their hands on this book, and those companies out there that listening. This is a great way to gift your team, and even have an awareness session or a workshop on this. Share a little bit of, maybe, as we in the final we still got time, but in the remaining part of this this segment, how you go about working with individuals and teams, organizations, and helping them to make this transition, to connect the dots to the bigger picture, what's important to them.
Absolutely. So one of my favorite things to do is to really come in for a couple different ways, right? I have some organizations who bring me in as a keynote speaker to talk about strategic rest and what that looks like and instituting it into the practices that your team has, right? But I also do sessions about it where people get to really think out what they want their rest plan to look like, and they leave with really kind of the manifesto for how they're going to be intentionally rested and what that plan looks like for whenever, right? For the moments where they're starting to feel burnout, they get to remember the things why they need to be rested. They get to have different pieces that helps them reconnect with why it's important to do it, and also reminders of what they said that they were going to do. So I created a workbook for that each of the organizations that bring me in, they get to have that in order for people to do it. And also, a lot of teams bring me in to do strategic retreats. So that's exactly where I'm recording this from. I told you I'm here with a team on location. So I wrapped up their 2 day strategic retreat, and we got the opportunity, of course, to talk about relationship intelligence, to really help them hone in on those skills. And then also, rest and collaboration is a huge part. So we do activities in different pieces that are engaging. I told you about my favorite part of today before we started to record, having someone who walks in going like, oh my goodness, not another one of these sessions, and leaving going like, you were amazing. I was not looking forward to this at all. But not only did I learn, but I never stopped being engaged and being intentional in the things that we were doing. So I absolutely love having the opportunity to do that for teams, and would love to do that for any other team that would love to bring me in.
Wow. Well, we encourage everybody that, take advantage of that. Again, as we get closer to the end of the show, Dr. Erin is going to give you her contact information. And again, all that will also be in the show notes as well. So we will definitely be you'll be able to get that information. As we get into the less than 2 minutes of sharing content here, Dr. Erin, anything that you want to just kind of sum everything up and really leave everybody on a high note to really take action with what was shared today with them?
Absolutely. So here's the thing. Strategic rest is incredibly important, right? I want everyone to understand how you can use that as fuel. And I've said that a few times, but it really should not be a reward. It should be fuel, okay? Because the more you lead from alignment, and again, not that adrenaline, that is when you're able to make that impact that you want to make, and it stays sustainable. It allows for you to have that focus and that energy. And so that's what I want people to do. Like, also, I think it's important for us, especially as leaders, and I know many people who will listen to this are leading teams, are people who are able to create and set culture at their in their offices and in their organizations. I really want them to start rewarding sustainable practices, not just people who are busy, right? Or trying to look busy, because we all know that that is something that we can do, and really looking for
Yeah,
ways to be a leader for the people that work for you, not
yeah,
just encouraging them to take time off, but them actually seeing you model the way.
absolutely. Well, Dr. Aaron, this has been a wealth of information. We want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule today. I know you got a lot going on and you're here on this podcast live, this radio show here. Again, we want to thank you not only personally for me, but also the rest of the team here at Sustainable Success.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I can't wait
A-
to connect with folks. Thank you.
Absolutely. And if you could share here briefly, how can people get in contact with you or anything you'd like to offer them?
Absolutely. I love when folks connect with me through LinkedIn. So if you hear this, send me a message. I can't wait to be a connection with you. But also, I do a show with my co author every Sunday on YouTube called Power Nap Live. And so we'd love for you to subscribe to that show and get a 30-minute boost of leadership inspiration every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And of course, you can connect with me through buying my book and letting me know you did that, because I love to hear kind of what inspired you to kind of stop again that hustle culture and lean into the magic that is strategic rest.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to put the link for the book and all that in the show notes. Again, everything can be found on the Lipson platform under the show, and you can find out information again, where to contact Dr. Erin there. And if you reach out to us, we'll make sure to also direct you directly to her as well. Thank you so much. And listeners, we want to thank you joining us each and every week. We are committed to bringing in subject matter experts like Dr. Erin in to help elevate you and your level of influence, including your business, to the next level. Again, if you like to hear content that has not been covered on this show in the past, feel free to reach out to us here at chris@sustainablesuccess.net, and somebody on our team will capture that information to possibly include on a future show. Again, Dr. Erin, thank you so much, and we wish you the best, and we look forward to having you on a future show. And listeners, we thank you again being here each and every week. Make sure to share this show with a colleague, superior of any kind, to really learn about rest is a leadership strategy. Till then, everybody, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next Thursday at